I spent the last 2 weeks trying to answer one question. Which states require disabled drivers to complete an extensive driving program before they can be licensed with hand controls, and which ones don't? The answer is, nobody actually knows. There's no national database. There's no clear guide. Most states' DMV don't even publish their own policies. Disabled people, especially newly injured people and teenagers aging into driving, are paying thousands of dollars for things they might not actually need. Today I'm going to explain why this happens, who benefits from it, and what we can actually do to fix it. Last week I made a video about driving after spinal cord injury. In that video I mentioned that I built a state-by-state guide. Building that guide was not easy and extremely frustrating because many states don't have these things anywhere in writing, at least nowhere I could find them. What drew my attention to this was when a mom in Missouri reached out to me. Her child is a teenager with a disability. He's at that age where all his friends are getting their licenses and he wanted to be able to drive too. Completely reasonable, completely normal. She did what any parent would do. She called the driving program. The program told her that her son would need to complete a certified driving program and that all of his required driving hours for his permit license would need to be done under direct supervision of a certified driver rehabilitation specialist. In the program, paid by the hour. She looked into vocational rehabilitation, which is supposed to be the funding source for exactly this kind of thing. And Missouri VR told her they would not pay for her son's driving program. So let's do the math on what she was looking at. A driving program evaluation, then every single driving hour. The state of Missouri requires at least 40 supervised hours, billed at driving program rates of $100 to $200 an hour, without VR covering any of it. That ends up being $4,000 to $8,000 just for a teenager to get a license when they turn 16. That's ridiculous. That makes me angry. She called the state, not the driving program, the actual Missouri state office. And she asked the question nobody had told her to ask. Do we legally have to go through a driving program to get a license with hand controls in Missouri? And the answer was no. Missouri has no legal requirements for a driving program to drive with hand controls. Her son could practice his driving hours with a parent supervising, using portable hand controls, which is exactly what they did. They got portable hand controls. She supervised his driving practice the same way any parent supervises their teenagers learning to drive. And then when he was ready, he went to the DMV and did his driving test with the portable hand controls. He got his license. No driving program required. No thousands of dollars required. Because somebody finally asked the right question of the right person. That story is why I went down this rabbit hole. Because if that mom hadn't thought to call the state directly, her son would either have had to have paid a fortune for something he didn't actually need, or he wouldn't be driving. And nobody in that chain, not the driving program, not the VR office, had any reason to tell her the truth. I called DMVs. I read state statutes. I read National Highway Traffic Safety reports. I read every mobility dealer website I could find. And after all that, for most states, I still couldn't tell you with certainty whether a driving program is legally required. Not because I didn't try, because the information generally isn't published anywhere. Most people can access it. In some states, Maryland, Virginia, DC, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, there is a documented multi-step process. You go through medical review, you complete a driving program, you train, you test, you get a restriction code on your license specifying the equipment you're legally required to use. It's clear. It's expensive, but it's clear. In every other state, including mine, Missouri, it's a mystery. The DMV says medical review may be required. The mobility dealer says you need a driving program. The hospital running the program says you need a driving program. The OT says you need a driving program. Nobody can show you the law that says you need a driving program, but everybody tells you that you do. So you pay for it, or you don't drive. Those are your options. I tried to think about why this is, and here are the 5 reasons I came up with. Reason 1, most state DMVs don't have a written policy on adaptive equipment. They have a medical advisory board or a medical review unit that decides on a case-by-case basis. So when you call and ask, do I need a driving program? The honest answer from the agent is, it depends. That's not them being unhelpful. That's them genuinely not having a rule to point at. Reason 2, there's no federal standard. The ADA prevents states from denying you a license because of disability, but it doesn't say anything about how states have to evaluate disabled drivers. So every state does it differently, and there's no agency standardizing or even tracking it. Reason 3, There is a financial incentive for the medical rehab industry to make driving programs feel mandatory. Go back to that story I just told you. The driving program wanted that teenager to complete every single required permit hour under driving program supervision. Think about what that means financially. That's not an evaluation. That's billing driving program rates for every hour of practice driving a teenager was going to do anyways. Hospitals make money running these programs. Mobility dealers prefer customers who have been through a driving program because the prescription tells them what exactly to install. Insurance companies and vocational rehab agencies often only pay for equipment if there's a driving program prescription attached. So everyone in the chain has a reason to tell you you need it. Nobody has a reason to tell you that in your specific state, you might not. I am not saying that driving programs are a scam. They are not. They're genuinely valuable for a lot of people, especially newly injured adults, people with complex disabilities, or people in states where driving programs are actually required. The OTs running them are good people, doing good work. But when an industry's livelihood depends on people thinking something is required, the information about whether it's actually required gets cloudy. Reason 4, disabled people are a scattered population. We don't have the same advocacy muscle that, say, parents of children in public schools have. There's no PTA equivalent for disabled drivers. The Reeves Foundation and United Spinal Cord Injury Association and their various local chapters, they do good work, but they're stretched thin across hundreds of issues. And helping us standardize state hand control policies is rarely at the top of the list. Reason 5, the information that does exist is gate-kept by people who got through the system. We don't do this on purpose. But once you've been driving with hand controls for 10 years, you forget how confusing the entry was. The disabled driving community has incredible peer-to-peer wisdom, but it's locked in private Facebook groups and forum threads from years ago. It's not centralized. It's not searchable. It's not where a newly injured 19-year-old or a parent of a 16-year-old is going to find it. Let me tell you specifically who gets hurt by this. The newly injured. You're 3 months out of rehab. You're trying to figure out work, housing, relationships, your body, your mental health, and now driving. You don't have time to call 7 DMV phone numbers and push back on everyone that tells you that you need a driving program. So you do whatever the OT at your rehab tells you. Sometimes that's right. Sometimes it costs you thousands of dollars you don't need to spend. Teenagers with congenital disabilities. You already heard the story. That mom got lucky because she was able to find an answer. She was persistent enough to call the state and ask the right question. Most families aren't going to know to do that. So if you don't know to push back, you either pay for a program that's not legally required or your kid doesn't drive. People in rural areas. The nearest driving program is 3 hours away. There's no public transit. So you either take 3 days off work and drive 6 hours to do the evaluation, or you don't drive. Low-income disabled people. This entire system is built around the assumption that you can spend $2,000 to $5,000 to figure out if you can drive. If you can't spend that money, the system has no path for you unless you're a veteran or have work goals and can use vocational rehabilitation. Here's what I think we have to do. But first I want to be clear. I'm not pretending I have all the answers, and I'd rather start somewhere than nowhere. That's what the state-by-state guide I posted last week is. It's imperfect, it's incomplete, and a bunch of the entries say case by case because the truth is we don't know. But it's the only document I'm aware of that even tries to give you the DMV phone numbers and the 7 questions to ask. If you went through this process in your state, please email me what your experience was. Every comment makes the next person's path easier. Make the system show its work. When you call a DMV and they tell you you need a driving program, ask them, where is this written? Can you point me to the statute, the regulation, or the policy document? Half the time they can't. Get it in writing when you can. Document the inconsistencies. Apply for vocational rehab, always, and apply early. They will pay for evaluations, training, equipment, sometimes even modifications and full conversions. Most disabled people I talk to either don't know about VR or they think they don't qualify. If you have work goals, even in the future, you probably do. Apply. And know going in, some state VR offices like Missouri may have their own policies on what they'll fund for younger teenagers specifically. If you're a veteran, contact the VA. The Department of Veterans Affairs finances adaptive driving programs and will often fund evaluations, training, and vehicle modifications for eligible veterans, sometimes more generously than state VR programs. If you served, this is your first call, not Voc Rehab. Push your state DMV to publish a policy. Email them, send a letter. If you have a state legislator who's friendly to disability issues, and especially if you have a state legislator who is disabled or has a disabled family member, make this a thing. Ask why your state doesn't have a public, written, citable policy on adaptive equipment licensing. My bet is the answer is because nobody's asked them to. Talk about it publicly, not just to other disabled people, to everyone. The reason this issue stays invisible is because non-disabled people don't think about it. We have to tell the story loudly in a way that makes everyone else realize how absurd it is. Push for federal standards. This is the long game. The ADA was signed in 1990. That's almost 36 years ago. It's time for an update that addresses adaptive driver licensing specifically. National Highway Traffic Safety could publish model policies. Congress could require states to publish their adaptive equipment policies as a condition of federal highway funds. None of this is going to happen tomorrow, but none of it will ever happen if we don't ask for it. I want to leave you with this. The reason I'm making these videos isn't because I want to be an activist or an influencer. I'd rather just be a guy who makes useful videos about life in a wheelchair. But every time I dig into one of these systems, I find another layer of broken that nobody's talking about. I think about that mom a lot. She did everything right. She called the program. She looked into VR. She ran into walls at every turn. The only reason her son has a license today is because she made one more phone call, the right phone call. Most families don't make that call because nobody tells them they should. That's the problem. The state-by-state guide is in the description. The directories for instructors and installers are linked so you can find a certified specialist near you. If you haven't already, check out last week's video about driving after a spinal cord injury. If you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if this pisses you off like it does me, share it. That's how this changes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.